Fratelloni's Hardware and Garden Stores brings you Garage Logic Podcast number 1287. Tax Day, April 15th, 2024. 91 degrees on this day in 2002. And 18 degrees, man, chilly in 2014. Now, if you're heading towards the swimming season, I hope you've gotten a hold of Aquaside. They've been keeping swimming areas and lake shores great for more than 60 years because they wipe out the weeds and the algae with products that they make right there in White Bear Lake. The products are easy to use, they work quickly, and they're registered with the EPA and DNR. They're completely safe. There's no need to let weeds overtake your lake or pond this summer. Call Aquaside today. They'll help you identify your weed problem and make sure your place looks great all summer long. Call Aquaside at 1-800-328-9350 or go to aquaside.com. Now, Aquaside brings us the ice out dates. It's interesting to note that I would say April 15th. I haven't done the math, but April 15th must be the about half come before April 15th. Sure. And about half come after April 15th.
Like the midway point.
Because April 15th is fairly scarce for ice outs. Minnetonka opened on April 15th in 1863, and not again until 2022.
Climate change.
White Bear Lake, 1944 and 2002.
Hail the flashlight king.
And now, from the mayor's office above the boathouse on the east shore of Spoon Lake, it's Garage Logic with Chris Reavers manning Technology Corner, Kenny Olson from the Krabby Coffee Shop, John Heidt in the newsroom, and of course, the rookie. Here is your flashlight king, fireworks commissioner, and the keeper of common sense, your mayor, Joe Souchere.
To start the show on a happy note, I don't even consider it a ray of hope. It's just happiness. It's a happy note. Friday, just this past Friday, at Norwood Young America, it was Drive Your Tractor to School Day.
Oh, yeah. I saw some photos online.
At Central High in Norwood Young America. And I was sent a picture by Dave Larson. Isn't that wonderful?
That's very cool.
All right. Drive your... Now,
Did you guys have that at Hill?
No, but I'm old enough to continue to tell you that the high school parking lot used to be a car show.
Yep.
It certainly isn't anymore. The culture has done a marvelous job of disabusing young people of cars. It's just amazing to me.
A lot of them are unaffordable these days. The cool old ones are unaffordable. The new cool ones are unaffordable.
And weren't they, relatively speaking, just as unaffordable?
I don't know. Were they? I've been actually spending a lot of time thinking about that lately.
Oh, it was just now they're just driving mom's minivan to school.
Like for instance, in 1979 was a 69 Chevelle affordable. I don't know. I don't remember.
More than it would be today.
In 83, I had a 65 Impala, and I don't think it cost more than $3,000. If I remember right, it had 37,000 on it when I got it.
I think I'm up to 40. I think I've had 40 cars.
Oh, I've kept track of motorcycles, but not cars.
Well, and those cars, speaking of which, they're going to get a lot more expensive to drive.
Why is that, Joe?
Well, there's a new proposed... Can you give me the authors of Senate File 2584?
Yep. Bear with me for
That's
just a moment.
That's a tax on every gallon you buy. An independent analysis shows the bill could increase fuel prices significantly, hitting hardest those who can least afford it. An extra 50 cents or more per gallon.
Your first author is DFL Senator Scott Dibble.
Yep.
There's three.
Yep.
Your second author is Senator Fong Hawj. I'm not sure how to pronounce his last name.
Hawj.
Hog.
And for your final author is Senate Majority Leader Aaron Murphy.
What number is it? Which file is it?
Senate File 2584.
584. Thank you.
Low-income families who already spend a larger share of their income on transportation could see their fuel expenses rise, consuming over 10% of their household budget. That's a penalty on your way of life. The bill is, the bill is modeled on California policy.
Well, that's fine then.
Minnesotans have enjoyed some of the lowest gas prices compared to other households in the U.S., but Senate
we
file.
don't know that.
We have compared to other California, for example.
Okay, true.
Senate file 2584 threatens to undo this, escalating. What am I reading from?
That was a website. I knew you were going to ask that.
It's obviously a gas advocacy group, which is I'm all for. Senate file 2584 threatens to undo this low pricing, escalating the average cost of Minnesota households spend on gas, pushing the state down the path of others like California, Oregon, and Washington, where fuel prices are among the highest in the nation. Why should Minnesotans bear the burden of a policy that makes life more expensive?
This was submitted by offsite correspondent Kelsey, and this is from the ConsumerEnergyAlliance.org website.
But what we've done is verify that this is a real proposed bill.
Correct.
It doesn't affect everyone equally. It disproportionately impacts those living in rural areas who depend on their vehicles for daily tasks and lack alternative transportation. It's not just about paying more at the pump. It's about the fundamental fairness of a policy that benefits few. That's amazing. A 50-cent increase. And is the purpose to save the earth?
Oh, yeah, this is.
Yeah, it's.
The CO2 is a very important gas. It's good for us. The amount of CO2 in the atmosphere is 0.04%. And to find the damage it does is like finding a grain of sugar on the bridge that goes over Interstate 35.
It's reducing the carbon intensity of transportation fuels. Aren't they talking carbon dioxide here, Joe?
Yeah, I said CO2.
I thought you mentioned carbon monoxide.
No.
All right.
Carbon monoxide is not good for you.
Right. Just scanning this, it looks like they're even covering farm vehicles like tractors and such.
Oh, well, I have the whole bill in front of me, but it's very small.
It's so
print.
tedious. So hard to.
We don't want to live this way. Aaron Murphy, whose husband I know and hold in fond respect, he painted my house twice. He's a hell of a guy. He's an expert at this house painting. They don't advertise. Yeah, Hughes and Murphy. He was retired. Murphy's still going. He must live in a house to buy it because he's a normal guy. He's just a normal human being. And this won't affect Aaron much. I mean, what's her commute from St. Paul to the Capitol? About 5 minutes?
Nothing.
But it's another example of just being completely out of touch.
Well, you're not going to save the earth with this.
Exactly, Chris. It's people near the tallest buildings making decisions for the people who don't, you know.
These are not, you know what? They always throw around equity. This is not equitable. This forces a poor person to pay far more of their yearly income on gas than a rich person.
What's the definition of not equitable? That's what this is.
This is not equitable.
This is intrusive.
We've talked about this before, but now we're talking the trickle-down effect. This is going to make goods more expensive because the guy that's delivering has to charge more.
Yeah. You know, the shows we did last week, part 1 and part 2 on Thursday and Friday regarding Zayed Mohammed and Sean Holster.
Holster, yeah.
What are you doing?
I got an update from him, but finish your thought.
They really created a lot of buzz.
To the point where Sean sent me a text yesterday saying, "Thank you and the crew again for having me on. My organization has already made over $1,500 so far as a direct result of my appearance on Garage Logic Friday." It doesn't sound like much, but for us, that is huge. Thank you, GLers.
I didn't intend for that to turn into his fundraiser. I think that was fine. It's great that he mentioned that. That's not why he was brought in.
No, not at all.
But he's a sharp guy, and he thought, what the hell, I'll take the opportunity here to try to raise a few bucks. We have another legislator that's interesting. Her name is Esther Agbaje. Rook, get on it. Agbaje. Agbaje.
A-G.
B-A-J. Agbaje, Esther Agbaje, DFL. She is hoping, she's along with 24 DFLers, hoping to advance a bill that would require corporate landlords to divest their single-family homes or else face a $100,000 fine.
Sure.
This makes me uncomfortable.
It should.
House File 685 passed a party line vote in the House committee, where its author said the proposal begins addressing the trend of corporate and investor owners in the housing market. Weren't both you and Kenny essentially investor owners of property?
Yep.
I sure was.
Mhm.
Yeah.
The details of the bill have been scaled back from the original version. Representative Esther Agbaje, DFL Minneapolis, introduced the bill she introduced last year, which would have prohibited any corporate entity, real estate developer, or residential building contractor from purchasing or building a single-family home and subsequently converting the property into non-homestead residential real estate. The version Agbaje presented to the House Judiciary and Financial and Civil Law Committee last Tuesday, would prevent corporate owners from owning more than 10 single-family homes in Minnesota that they use as rental properties. I'm trying to get to the why here. And if you violate that, she would fine you $100,000 per excess unit.
Where the Republicans just can't get any purchase in Minneapolis. She is an American politician serving in the DFL since 2021. 59B North and downtown Minneapolis. She's born in St. Paul.
What?
Two parents who immigrated to Minnesota from Nigeria.
Mhm.
She grew up in Brainerd and Faribault and graduated from Shattuck St. Mary's.
Wow.
Graduated from George Washington University, Bachelor of Arts in Poli-Sci.
Can't flunk that.
University of Pennsylvania with a Master of Public Administration.
Can't flunk that.
Harvard University with a Juris Doctora.
Another lawyer.
As a law student, she worked at Harvard's Legal Aid Bureau and volunteered for volunteer lawyers. Before law school, she worked at the U.S. Department of State as a Foreign Service officer focusing on the Middle East.
So she's never had a job.
She was an associate with Cerisi Conlon LLP, where she did pro bono work.
She couldn't have lasted
Brown?
there. How old is she, Matt? She couldn't have
She's
lasted there long.
39.
39?
So
Yes.
it caps it at, like you said, 10 single family homes per person, corporation, whatever. So, Chris, little quiz. When you were renting a property, you had to mention that income on that property on your taxes and pay taxes on it. Did you not?
Sure did, Ken.
Yeah. Plus, you paid a non-homestead tax. Did you not?
Sure did, Ken.
So, if this dries up, what's going to happen to that revenue?
That's going to go away, Ken.
The committee voted to advance the bill to
Sounds
its
like
next
plywood,
stop,
Minnesota.
the Housing, Finance, and Policy Committee, on a party line vote. DFL legislators who have either signed on to the bill or have voted to support it include Jamie Becker-Finn of Roseville, Ned Carroll of Plymouth, Breon Curran of Vadnais Heights, Sandra Feiss of New Brighton, Lee Finke of St. Paul, Luke Frederick of Mankato, Matt Norris of Blaine, and Kristen Bonner of Maple Grove. Republicans on the committee criticized the bill as government overreach into the housing market. But it certainly sounds like it, doesn't it? Isn't it an old tried and true way of trying to make a buck in this country is owning property?
This is
Right.
not the government's role.
Well, it's part of the American dream. You know, that's what we've.
The Republicans,
Did you mention the Equity and Peace Coalition?
I'm getting there.
Yeah,
Representative
it's-
Peggy Scott,
It's amazing.
a Republican from Andover,
She's a
questioned
GLer.
I know her. Yeah.
several provisions, including the creation of a mandatory single-family home rental database that would allow the Attorney General's office to track the number of single-family rental properties owned by business entities, including the monthly rent they charge. Quite frankly, it's none of the government's business what I'm charging for rent unless it's Section 8, she said. That's
Right.
federally owned housing.
And she's right.
I have a real problem with putting out there what the rent amounts are. I don't see the need for a database. The legislation is supported by a coalition of housing activist organizations under the umbrella many of Minneapolis-based equity in place. Well, you equity people should be getting on the Democrats who want to raise your gallon of gas 50 cents a gallon, along with the Twin Cities chapter of Habitat for Humanity, whose representatives told legislators that corporate investment in the housing market is a statewide issue that needs to be addressed. Why? We appreciate the fine-based approach, meaning a fine for violating, in this amendment, and would suggest that the resources accumulated be designated to the Workforce and Affordable Home Ownership Program. So they'd fine you guys that own property, and then they would use that money so somebody could go and rent a house from you.
Why don't they just take it from me? Why don't they just declare eminent domain and take it out of my
I
hands?
wouldn't give them any
Pay me bottom dollar for it.
Those representing the single-family home rental industry say such. Now, according to this, I could still go buy the house across the street and rent it.
Right.
But the rent I charge might be in a database, and I'd be frowned upon by the Mysterians. But I can still do that because they haven't gotten that far yet.
Right, and the rent you charge is what the market bears.
We're talking less than 10 properties.
But if I own 11 of those properties, I'm fined on the 11th one.
Yep. No, they're after you.
But those representing the single-family home rent, I wonder how they arrived at 10.
What's their number?
Why is that okay?
It's very arbitrary. You're right.
Why isn't 11 okay?
I bet they don't even know. I bet they couldn't answer that.
But those representing the single-family home rental industry say such language is unconstitutional on several grounds, including by violating the Takings Clause and Equal Protection Amendment of the federal Minnesota constitutions. As of 2023, about 165,000 single-family residential units across Minnesota were rented out. A ban on the corporate ownership of single-family homes violates owners' rights against government takings by instituting a regulation which impermissibly interferes with owners' rights of enjoyment and disposition of their property, wrote David Howard, CEO of the National Home Rental Council, in testimony opposing the bill. At a time when housing throughout America is challenged by an unprecedented shortage of homes brought on by decades of underbuilding, any legislation or regulation like House File 685 discouraging and restraining new housing development investment only serves to make housing more scarce and unobtainable, Howard said. Other organizations opposed to the proposal include the Minnesota Realtors Association. We've heard concerns about large institutional investors, said Pat Paulson, a longtime Twin Cities realtor and treasurer of the Minnesota Realtors Association. However, the ownership threshold in this bill is 10 or more. That threshold will cover smaller local housing providers. Lawmakers who fell on different sides of the bill spent time during recent hearings arguing over whether the legislature's role is to direct the housing market or get out of the way. We're losing the ability of the government to get out of the way of anything. You have the president not getting out of the way of automobile manufacturing and letting the market decide. He's forcing you to buy an electric car. Actually, he's forcing manufacturers to build them at tremendous losses to them. And yet you as a taxpayer have to subsidize the purchase of them. Well, okay, there are just a lot of homes that people could live in if we wanted them to, said Representative Finke. We are taking the resources we have. You don't have anything, Finke. You didn't build a house. And putting them in the hands of fewer people who have more control over what people are trying to access, and that will always lead down the wrong path for our communities. Representative Harry Niska, a Republican from Ramsey, pointed out that many corporate investors in the single-family real estate market are pension funds or small family businesses. With this bill, I think you're potentially going to wrap up a lot of other people rather than the fat cats you think you're applying this to, Niska said. I got this story from Elephant News. I think it's a dreadful intrusion on property ownership.
That's a really interesting and proper quote. I mean, he really hit the nail on the head there. Basically, what he said is this is retirement income for folks because their retirement isn't enough to survive on. So
They
the few
need
houses that they own and that they earn rental on, that's their income.
Keep all of this in mind for one of the reasons we had part 1 and 2 last Thursday and Friday. The only reason, or the principal reason, we brought in Sean Holster was because he ran against a woman in Minneapolis named was it Zagreb? Zaida Mohammed, who defeated him 39,000.
No, it's
Zainab Mohammed, who defeated Sean Holston in a South Minneapolis District 63 for a Senate seat by 39,000 votes to nothing, essentially. And well, you got 6,000. And I wanted to know from Sean Holster, what's going on? Who are these people? And he was very good at explaining that. But the other reason I brought him in is one of Zaida's quotes was, when it comes to somebody living in a home that they don't own, that they shouldn't be hassled because they're just as much human as,
Right.
even though they don't have documentation, they're just as human as the owner of the house, which isn't the issue. No one's questioning anyone's humanity. So couple her views of private property ownership with this, and there's probably a very comfortable, large movement among the DFLers who are no longer your parents' DFL. These are Marxist socialists who don't want private property ownership. Here's another attack on it.
Mm-hmm.
These are dreadful directions for the legislature to go, all under the auspices of the worst governor in the history of Minnesota, who has had no ability to intervene or nor wish to, apparently. Occasionally, he should be coming forward to say, you kids are always going too far. You've gone too far on the fact that we're going to build a new office building. You're going too far on these property issues. But he's just a moron who doesn't know what the hell he's doing and is the worst governor in the history of Minnesota.
You finally joined our side.
Oh, boy, did I ever.
This is a forced decline.
Yeah.
This is the taking relative decline, American decline, managed decline, and forcing all of them on foisting, I should even use that word, upon us.